So in this video, I'm going to go over how I use AI agents to make perspective pages and in a way that I don't have to re-explain every nuance of making the perspective page every time I want something in perspective done. What most people try to do is they open up Claude, Codex, or maybe even ChatGPT. They ask, how to build a motor faceplate template. And what they usually get back is either a nice looking idea that cannot be imported or a chunk of malformed JSON that Ignition does not like. And that's because perspective is not just some JSON. Perspective views are stored as JSON project resources, but there is not a complete public schema you can simply hand to an AI agent and expect it to generate reliable importable pages. You can export a view, inspect the JSON, and learn a lot from it. But if you have actually tried to generate perspective pages this way, the hard part is not getting something that looks closed. The hard part is finding the small mistakes. So the agent will often hallucinate a property, put a binding in the wrong place, use the wrong event shape, or generate JSON that imports but does not behave correctly. Some of those errors fail loudly, some of them fail silently. The page might open, but a binding will not resolve. A script will not run, or a component will render differently than expected. Sometimes the view exists in the project, but the page will not render because one malformed JSON shape breaks the route or component. Other times a binding script fails because the agent may duplicate the transform function definition wrapper or got the stored indentation wrong. And that is where you can lose a lot of time, is figuring out what exactly went wrong. So in this video, I want to show the higher level approach I have been using to make AI agents useful for building Ignition perspective pages, not by giving them one giant prompt, but by giving them a feedback loop. And while I explain some of this stuff, I'll let the demo run in the background. And it's just a simple demo where I'm using a Hermes agent in this instance, and I have uploaded the skill that I have built for both scripting Jython and making perspective pages, both which took weeks to get them to the point where they can one-shot simple projects. And with more complex projects, they're saving me hours, if not days worth of work. Now, if you don't want to take the time to build the skills out for yourself and building these loops out and spending thousands of dollars in API calls, go to the description below or to ignitionaiskills.com. But in this video, I want to give you enough information for you to be able to start the process on your own. First, the agent needs a controlled access to Ignition. That means a local trial, development gateway, QA gateway, and the way I've done it is through the web dev module. And just a quick reminder, the web dev module can be part of the trial. So you can run these loops for 2 hours at a time if you haven't purchased the module. The second part of the loop is building the API or the HTTP endpoint that the agent will use to import and update a perspective view, read it back, validate the route, check logs. Over time, you make it more capable. Export resources, inspect errors, browse approved tag paths, work with UDTs, capture screenshots, collect the evidence, so the agent knows exactly how it failed. So now that you've created a way for the agent to manipulate the gateway, you can now start building a focused skill. In this video, we will focus on the perspective skill. The next step is to create tests so that the AI agent can learn exactly how Ignition perspective views work. So you do not ask the agent to learn all of Ignition at once. You point it at one domain, whether it be perspective views, Jython scripting, SQL queries, importing UDTs, importable packages, whatever you want to improve. Then the agent creates the tests, runs them through the API, reads the results and logs, compares expected versus actual behavior, and then it fixes its assumptions and writes the lesson into the skill MD. And with enough testing, the skill becomes a portable expertise. It's tested instructions, patterns, and edge cases the agent can reuse without relearning the same nuances every time. So that is the important shift. The API is not just for uploading pages, it is the feedback loop that lets the agent discover what Ignition actually accepts. what silently fails, what patterns should be reused next time. So whether it's in Codex or Claude, you can use something that's called a goal. This creates a prompt that the agent will come back to until it's completely finished. In that prompt, you can ask it to create as many tests as it can come up with, run them through the gateway, and then inspect the results. Then update the skill and then create the next test until the agent runs out of useful new cases. In this goal loop, if you write it correctly, can run by itself for hours, if not days. Below in the description, I will write out an example goal prompt of what this would look like if you were to run it in Codex or Claude. But make sure that you have the API in the web dev module already written once you run this. Otherwise, it won't be able to interact with the gateway. And again, this is something else that I have already built. It is pretty robust. It can inspect the gateway before touching anything, so it can read projects, views, routes, tags, styles, named queries, alarms, logs, and more. It can upload perspective pages safely using a dry run first, then an explicit apply step. It can also validate what changed, so routes, dependencies, page structure, gateway logs, and rollback points, and a lot more. Again, if you want to take a look at all the functions that it enables, go to ignitionaiskills.com and it will give you a full description of what it is able to do. One useful trick here is using the larger Ignition API reference right from 8.3 to get ideas on the endpoints that you might want to build. Unfortunately, the API.json from 8.3 is over 300,000 lines. And so it is over 2 million tokens, which is larger than any context window that's basically available right now. The good news is I've had multiple agents analyze part of the API, and I was able to create an Excel inventory of all the API endpoints. I will share with you a link in the description below. It also happens to be a blog post where I went over finding the gap between what I built in 8.1 and what inductive automation has done with the 8.3 API. And then I found endpoints that I wanted to add to my own API. And for somebody starting out, that Excel is a list of ideas. And I suggest you focus on a certain module or a small set of endpoints and then prompt an AI agent to start building those endpoints. So this is what Claude built in about 19 minutes. And here is the prompt that I gave the agent. The important thing is I did not give it the exact tag path. I told it to find a motor 101 or a similar motor or drive tag and then build an operator style perspective screen around it. So the first thing it did was call the gateway API, check that the runner was healthy, and browse the tag providers. That matters because I'm not manually feeding it every tag path it had to discover. So the first thing it did was call the gateway API, check that the runner was healthy, and browse the tag providers. That matters because I'm not manually feeding it every tag path. It had to discover what was actually available in the Ignition gateway. So it found the live demo motor UDT instance under the LLM tests folder, and that instance had the kind of tags you would expect for a simple motor display: state, running, faulted, fault type, RPM, torque, power, and then it also had cycle enabled and force fault. Then it generated a real perspective view, not just a mock-up. The view is LLM tests / motor 101 operator page. And it also created the page route so I could open it in the browser. I did not do that manually. This is where the perspective skill and Jython skill matter. For example, the state banner is using a tag binding to the motor state and then a script transform to turn that state into the right texts and colors. So if the motor is running, starting, faulted, or off, the display changes with it. The motor graphic is an ignition motor symbol component. The agent bound the symbol's state animation, animation speed, motor color, an RPM label to live tags. So this is not just a static image, the symbol is being driven by the tag values. Then it built the trend using a perspective time series chart. The chart uses a tag history binding for RPM, torque, and power over the last 30 seconds. RPM is one axis, and torque and power are on the other. And the big thing is the agent did not just write the JSON and stop. It dry ran the package, applied the view, merged the route, validated the route, checked the live tags, checked the history data, and gave me back the URL. This took about 19 minutes from a high level prompt. Yeah, to me, that's the real productivity changer. The agent is not just generating text. It's using Ignition as a test environment. It can discover tags, build the perspective view, wire up the bindings, add script transforms, validate the result, and come back with a working operator screen. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to leave them below. If you're looking for more information, or if you're looking to access any of the other 14 skills that I've built, you can go to the description below or go to ignitionaiskills.com. It is a one-time fee lifetime membership where I will continue to iterate and improve not only the skills but the API itself. And that lifetime membership will give you constant access to any improvements and future updates. Thank you for watching.